We're going to be live. Oh, we are. All right. Hey, you guys. I know this is an unexpected live. We actually planned to do this earlier in the week, but I got sick and the ladies' schedules and mine couldn't converge until today. So is that still going on?
Yeah.
What is it? Okay. If the sound is crazy in the chat, let me know, you guys. So I thought it would be, hold on, I'm going to do something. Hold on 1 second. I'm going to mute you both and see. Maybe we just can't be unmuted together. I think this is a me problem though, honestly. So I wanted to have this conversation because I feel like a lot of times when we talk about if Black women are the mules of the Black community, if Black men are trash human beings, if the community just can't be fixed and we only focus on the men and the women are being left behind, I feel like it's important to listen to people who feel like that. But I also feel like it's sort of like with babies, not comparing people to babies. I'm just saying, when you have a hungry baby, they cry the loudest. A content baby doesn't have, they might gurgle or something, but they're not going to be as bothersome, right? So I feel the same way, the same thing applies to life. When you have people who are discontented and unhappy and are having negative experiences, their voices seem to be the loudest because happy people are busy living their happy lives. So I thought it would be great to kind of shake up the conversation a bit by having women on who are in healthy relationships and working with Black men in healthy ways. So healthy relationships, marriages, healthy business partnerships, building with Black men, supporting Black men, and who have positive experiences in their current life with Black men and have them speak on this issue instead of always having the hurt people speak. And I think we should hear them, right? Because everything they're saying is not made up. But I think it's important that people who are having healthy experiences, that we start talking more so that our voices can be heard too, because the community is not dysfunctional everywhere. Like, we're all not having the same experience. So anyway, I want to introduce the ladies. This is Botanica and Marcia, and either one of you can pop in and kind of speak to that idea. Let's start with this. After you introduce yourself, are Black women the mules of the Black community? Are we the workhorses of the Black community? Are we doing all the work and the men aren't doing anything and the burden's really falling to us?
I can start. So I'm Botanica, and so this is a very important topic. So thank you for having us on this to discuss this topic. I don't believe that Black women are the mules. I do think that we have this, I want to save the world. I want to make a better life for my children, and I want to help everybody. So we tend to maybe overexert ourselves and put our hands in many different pots. But I don't think we're the only ones doing the work. I think that if we are in partnerships with Black men, they are doing what they do. They're doing what they specialize in and what they are good at taking care of, and we are doing what we do. Plus, of course, taking care of our families, nurturing, and all of those things. So it might look like we're doing more or a lot, but I think it's just like we have our roles and what we're good at, and so do they.
Wait, you're muted, Marcia.
I agree with Ms. Botanica. I believe that, there are, well, sorry, I didn't introduce myself. I'm Miss Marcia. I'm with the Zayx Institute in Brooklyn, New York. Homeschooling, number one, baby. But what I was saying was, I agree with Ms. Botanica. We're not the mules, but we have our hands in a lot of pots at the same time. the men do what they do and the women do what they do. And it's a group effort. Together, it's a team. And that's how it works.
But what do you guys think about, okay, so undeniably, like we have to be honest, right? In that a lot of homes only have a woman leading the home, right? So she is doing the work of two people. And it can feel, because you also hear a lot of Black women saying, well, we don't feel protected. You know, we're doing all the building in the communities. The Black men are not doing anything. Black men don't want to be in long-term relationships with Black women. So they're not trying to marry us. They're not trying to have healthy families with us and things like that. I'm curious what your thoughts are on that, because one, I would make the argument that a lot of times there are lots, don't get me wrong, y'all, there are lots of homes that only have a mother in them. But I also think there are two-parent homes that are not counted as two-parent homes because of the fact that the parties may not be married in a traditional legal marriage, even though they're living in the same home as married people for extended periods of time. And I think that also some of Black women raising families on their own, that some of that accountability falls to us as well, and what we choose to do with our bodies, who we couple with, and things like that. So maybe we haven't made the best choice of mate, and then therefore, because we're not overwhelmingly making good mate choices, that we're finding more women in these predicaments.
To speak on that, with the mate choices, sometimes that's true. Sometimes that's true. Like women see a guy and they don't care what he's like or whatever the case. They just have this fantasy in their head. But a lot of the times, these brothers change up. You know, the person they introduce you to is not the person you end up with later on. So, yes, there's some accountability on our part. Maybe we have to wait a little bit longer to really get to know this person past 6 months, a year, because, you know, you can't pretend forever. But I would say that that responsibility lies on both. Of course, you know, I know there's a lot of guys that are like, women don't take accountability, but we do. We take accountability because we'll look at it like, I chose this person. That was crazy. I don't even know what I was thinking. I can't tell you how many times I've had friends of mine come to me and be like, I don't know what I was thinking. And I'll be like, I don't know either, but you was in love. So I let you have it. But yeah, the responsibility lies on both, because you can't have a relationship by yourself. You know, you have to have a relationship with somebody, whether he was pretending or not. You know, so yeah. They still count, as far as I know, they still count people who live together as being in a relationship or being a couple or family, because it's called common law. After 6 years or 7 years of living with somebody, they do look at you as you guys are together. So yeah.
Irene, could you clarify what was the original question again? I'm sorry.
Yeah, so I was asking about us being the mules and the workhorses, and a lot of that coming down to us lacking protection and not having leadership within our homes, and if that was in any way tied to our accountability as well, as, you know, as far as like how we're choosing mates, and is that leaving a lot of our women in predicaments where we are kind of doing all, you know, all the work of two people.
Yeah, absolutely. Lack of protection. I wanna speak on that first, because I know for me personally, like I had quite a journey to get to where I am now. And like before I did the self-work and the loving on myself, kind of work, I was in situations where brothers were not respecting and protecting me, you know? So, but it took me really like looking at myself and like looking at that how I was showing up and how I was allowing people to treat me, and how I was treating myself to actually make the changes. Because now I'm in a situation where I'm married to someone who will protect me. I'm around brothers at Ziax who will protect me. You know, it's a lot of like respectable dudes that I'm around now. But before, when I was younger, it was that wasn't the case. So I know that I personally was making choices in men that just were not good, you know. So I wouldn't be I can't blame them. They are who they are, and it's up to me to choose to be in a relationship with them, even in friendships or in co-working relationships, you know. So yeah, I think it is up to us. Of course, you know, no one should be disrespecting, you know, another person, etc., etc. But it always falls back on us. Like, what are we choosing to allow in our space, and how are we showing up that even attracts that kind of caliber of man?
Yeah, I kind of agree with both of you. I agree with what Miss Marsha is saying, which is sometimes men are just full of BS. Like, they're stepping because there's something they want, and so they're presenting, you know, they're presenting, you know, a side of them that is not 100% honest. But I feel like even in those, there are red flags, and we may choose to overlook them. You know, I think a lot of times we see that there's a problem there, but a lot of times we're lonely, right? A lot of times our esteem is not in the right place. You know, I talked about the other day about how, you know, 60% of Black women have experienced some level of sexual abuse right before they reach 18, be that touching or full-on rape or whatever that is. And so you grow into somebody that maybe doesn't value themselves fully. And so and you also attach your value to somebody's desire to sleep with you. And so a lot of times when we're given attention by a man, right, we're so eager to have a relationship and be loved that we ignore warning signs, or we give too much of ourselves too soon. And it's weird. We have this weird, you know, thing with morality among Black women, I feel, where a lot of times we want to keep, you know, our babies and our offspring because they're ours. But then we recognize by the time we're so deep in that maybe we've made the wrong choice. And then we begrudge the role that we have to play because we picked the wrong dude. Like, he wasn't that dude. We didn't watch the warning signs, or maybe he was just an ass, but that kind of got you off. Do you know what I mean? Like, let's be honest. Some of us are masochistic as well. And we like the bad boy. We like the jerk. We like kind of being treated a little bit wrong. But then we think that we can rein that in when it comes time for them to be responsible in things. And when they don't turn into this new human being for us, then we feel very slighted and we start to speak from a place of hurt. So not to say that what they're doing is right, because it's not right, but just saying that, can we say that the majority of Black men behave a certain way? And I guess that's my next question. Is it fair to say, because a lot of people say the majority of Black men are broken, the majority of Black men don't care about family, the majority of Black men, and so you hear the most of them argument. Can we say that because of our personal experiences, most Black men are like the men we experience? Or is it kind of, and you were alluding to this, Botanica, where we place ourselves are the Black men that we'll be surrounded by?
In my experience, I would say a lot of our Black men are broken. They've gone through some things, and because a lot of them don't really believe in, you know, therapy or healing or talking to somebody, they think like, you know, that's a feminine thing. They really keep those things in, and those traumas play out in their life. You know, just how they handle things, their attitude, their outlook on things, their perception, that all comes from things that happened in the past. And it's really hard to get a Black man to just even admit that he has an issue most of the time. And then once they do have an issue, or they figure out they've had an issue, probably because several people have said it, they're still not trying to fix that. You know, they don't. It takes a lot of work. It takes a lot of work, a lot of patience to get to the core of what the issue is. And most of it is a lot of trauma. I can't even elaborate on it any more than that, but I think so.
So it is undeniable that there's a lot of trauma. It's on both parts. You know, men and women do experience a lot of trauma, and I think it is a little easier for women to come to terms with that. Like oh man, like something's happening in my life that I don't like. I need to shift it. With men, I think it tends to be like something major has to happen for them to be like, okay, now like I gotta fix this. I gotta deal with this. Sometimes it's like, you know, the loss of a mate or, you know, maybe even a parent. I'm not sure, but like definitely the loss of a mate. Sometimes it takes them like hitting that rock bottom, like, oh my God, my world left me, for them to kind of shift. But then there's some men who might have been raised with a really strong male figure in their life, you know, like a mentor or a grandfather or father that has really like shaped their experiences. So I don't want to say most men are broken, but I think it takes a while longer. Like let's say like, you know, through our span of our life, like, you know, for women, maybe in their 20s, that's when they kind of go through it and decide to make a change. But for men, it might take a little bit longer, and it might take something serious for them to actually deal with the things that have shaped their worldview and the way that they treat women.
Yeah, I think what sometimes is frustrating to me is I feel like we approach these conversations like Black women are the problem or Black men are the problem, as if our shit doesn't stink. Do you know what I mean? Like everybody has their own hurts, their own traumas, their own dramas that they've gone through in their lives. And all of this builds us up to the person we are. And I think if we recognize as a people, like everybody is searching for love and acceptance where they can bring their full selves to the table without judgment, without, you know, every time. I think a lot of times we take behavior from okay, so let me give you a really good example. I was talking to some Black man that I love. I was talking to him, and for the first time, I felt like I really understood him, right? So, you know, he came from a family that was not functional. And the level of the dysfunction was kind of reaching a precipice. And having come from that, it made him shy away from developing his own family because, one, he didn't think anybody would accept the him that operated outside of his family if they had to take the package that was his family, right? And two, he was afraid of duplicating that brokenness. Now, did he literally come out and say, this is how I feel? No, but that revealed itself through listening and understanding and loving through, you know, everything that he was going through over a long period of time. And so for the first time, I was like, oh man, I really understand you. A Black man that I love suddenly died. And I was talking to his mother, and she was telling me all of this stuff that happened to him when he was young that he had never told me about. And I thought, man, I would have understood him as a person so much more, right, before his death, if I would have known that backstory. I think women, we share our trauma much easier. You know, we're talkers, we talk, we share. I think a lot of times when people act away towards us, we view it as an affront toward us, or we think it's about us or our unworthiness or the fact that we are not lovable, or he's just an ass, when we have to recognize that we don't know what causes. 5 people can react in the same way, but their motivations can all be different. And I think we have to respect that and not attack each other inside of our community as men and as women, simply because we don't understand what a person's trauma is that causes them to behave in ways that ultimately cause dysfunction in our lives, right? But this goes back to what Marsha was saying, which is vetting, which is carrying on a relationship with somebody for more than a year before you put yourself in a position where you might procreate with them, or you might end up in a situation that's going to leave you burned in a way that's going to be harmful to you. And also ties into what Ms. Botanica was saying, which is, essentially, all right, so I have a very submissive sort of way about me, and that would attract a lot of predatory men who like to control women, but not in a good way, right? And I had to recognize at some point that I was giving off a vibe that was attracting a certain type of man, and stop putting out that vibe. And I found that I've been around more positive Black men now that the circles I run in and the things that I do with myself are different. That means that my conversation's different, the way I carry myself is different, who I talk to is different, who I end up engaging with through the people that I meet is different. If you're a drug addict and all you hang out with drug addicts, you might think everybody is high all the time. Everybody's using drugs, but step outside your circle. Some of us are sober, and I think relationships and what we encounter in life is kind of the same way.
I would agree. I agree with that. You change your circle, you definitely are going to get a different vibe. But, I say the but because, people think that about good neighborhoods too. Like, oh, I'm going to move to this great neighborhood and I'll be safe. Things happen everywhere. But you will get more positive hanging around a different group of people, being around people who vibrate on a higher level, who are positive. You'll definitely get better.
What do you guys think is advice for women? Because I always, when women who have been hurt in relationships with Black men are given advice, I feel like the advice is always just leave these American Black men alone. Now, I think throughout the diaspora, Black is Black, right? So you can just pick, right? But to say like whole sections of Black men are broken, I've heard some women from Europe, some Black women from Europe go, oh, well, the Black men here are trash too, So what do you think if a woman is looking for a healthy relationship within the Black community, then what do you think we need to put out as women, or where do you think we need to be searching for that? Or do you search, right? Do you just do the work on yourself and then you'll attract and know when to reject those people who aren't on the level, on the place they ought to be? Like, what is the strategy that we can give Black women for getting? Because remember, I want to say this because there's 60 people here now, but y'all weren't here earlier. These women that I'm talking to are here because they are in healthy, functional relationships with Black men who love them, who care for Black women, who are protectors, who are providers, who care about our youth. They're all the things that we say are anomalies, right? All three of us are in relationships with men like this. So then how do you find that?
Well, definitely you want to take a look at yourself and what you're putting out, right? Like you want to make sure that what you're saying that you want in a relationship, you actually are that. You want someone who is, not lazy and who is, smart and outgoing. You need to be that. You need to take care of yourself the way that you want someone to take care of you. And then also practice saying no to what you don't want. When you get that red flag of someone being like overly controlling or mildly abusive or whatever it is that that you don't want, like you have to start saying no, as opposed to just kind of putting it to the side because you want to be loved or because this person is showing you attention. Yeah, I mean I'll start there. I'll probably jump back in later on.
I would say work on yourself. When you're working on yourself and you're happy, you just attract good things. You know, people are attracted to people who look like they're living their best life. You know, like you're doing what you need to do. You're going to school. You're going to work. You're accomplishing your goals. That's when the right people, most of the time, you know, this is still life. There's always a chance, but most of the time, the people who even think about stepping up to you are on your level. Everybody else are the other men who are vibrating on lower levels. Don't even they're already intimidated, so they're not even gonna try it. I mean, some broke people have the audacity, but most of the time, when you're vibrating on a higher level and you're having a good time and you're living your best life, that's what you attract. And if it's not, like Ms. Botanica said, you got to use that no word. Like, oh, you do this? Nope, that's not what I'm looking for. Oh, you do this? That's not what I'm looking for. At least when you're taking care of yourself and you're happy and you're vibrating on a high level, the pick that you have is different. You're picking from the best now. You know what I'm saying? So out of the best, you take what you can deal with. Everybody has their flaws. There's no such thing as perfection.
Yeah, I like that everybody has their flaws. Go ahead, Botanica. You were going to say something?
Yeah, I was also gonna say you really want to be real with yourself too, and have a circle of friends who's gonna be real with you too. Like, yeah, straight up, like being like looking at yourself, being accountable for your actions. Sometimes we drive, you know, or we could drive a partner to, you know, go to the side that he doesn't want to go to, you know. So we also want to kind of take accountability and have our friends be that mirror for us too.
Yeah, I'm glad you said that. What we view as love, right? Because sometimes we view and sometimes we view dysfunction as love, right? So if you have a man that's very tempered, which a lot of healthy minded men, right? Men who are working on themselves, again, not perfect men, but healthy minded men, there are some things they won't engage in, right? They're not going to put their hands on you like that. They're not going to be trying to get into yelling matches with you. They might detach from you, you know? So if you start acting a certain type of way, and you might read that as, oh, he doesn't care. Because here I am, I'm bringing this, and he's like, okay, I'm detaching, you know? And willing to revisit it, you know, revisit you and your conversation at a later date. But then if you pull it again, he'll detach. And a lot of times we read that as like, he doesn't love me. Because if he loved me, he would get into this, you know, he would get into the dirt with me, and we would have this conversation. But, you know, we have to recognize sometimes in our dysfunction, we don't recognize what is functional. And we can read healthiness as not being loved. Whereas if we have a man where if we get up in his face and we're feeling emotional, or, you know, because as women, we feel things very deeply, which makes us beautiful and amazing mothers, right? But men are meant to balance that. So you don't want a man who's going to be as emotional about a situation as you. But if we're always looking for that person that always responds with the maximum amount of passion, right? Then we are looking for somebody that is in essence unstable. And an unstable man, right, is going to be that man that is going to leave you in a precarious situation with children. Is going to be that man that might harm you, right? Is going to be that man where you don't know the reaction that you're going to get. So some of that stability that we're looking for, that comes through our choices, but then we have to exude stability too, because also recognize the men that choose to be with you, because it's a mutual choice, right? You're choosing him, he's choosing you, may not be the man that you're looking for, because healthy people might see something in you that they can't surpass. They might see the red flag and pass on you. So it could be that we're not that as women, we're not meeting men that can meet our expectations. It's that they see something in us that recognize that they're like, this is probably not. I remember meeting a guy and he said something to me and I thought, yeah, this isn't going to work. I could see he's going to be the kind of person. Have you guys, I'm sure ladies, especially in the chat, you guys have met men who think that the appropriate way to control you is to bring you down, to put you down, right? In those situations, you know, I know that's not a relationship I want to be in. So I met a man once and I noticed, you know, he had said some crazy crap to me and I was like, oh, you're one of those. You're one of these dudes who feels that you have to make me feel bad about myself in order to control me, right? And so I backed off right away. Do you give off, like as women, do you give off, think about yourself, a healthy-minded person, something about you that might say, oh, she seems bitter. I don't want to deal with that. Oh, she seems, you know, unstable in one way or another, right? She seems overly eager. Being too eager sometimes will turn a healthy-minded person off because unhealthy people jump into relationships and love quickly, right? We want to be loved right away. We want to have the relationship right away. That's a red flag to a healthy-minded person. They're like, oh, okay, so if you're falling into it deep with me real quick, how many times have you done that? That's a sign of instability. So are you scaring off healthy options? We have to think about that as women.
Yeah, I lost connection, but can you guys hear me? Okay, cool. Yeah, that was a great point, Irene. That whole jumping in quickly. Not only is it could it raise a flag for the other person, but also you're not taking the time to actually vet this person. I don't know if you already mentioned this, but yeah, you're not able to vet this person. You're not able to tell if this will be a good partner for you and your future family. So yeah, great point.
No, I agree as well. But everybody's different, you know. So sometimes you let off the right vibe, and sometimes everything's perfect, and sometimes it's not. Sometimes people have weird things that they deem relationship goals, and other things that are deal breakers for them. So, but if you take the time, really take the time, you'll figure these things out. Definitely.
What about money?
Money?
Money. So the other argument is Black men are not providers, right? And that if you are calling you Black woman, you know, that meant Black men are incapable of providing. So since they're incapable of providing, then why do we have to struggle of it with each other? What about that narrative? Like just struggling alongside a Black man, lifting him up, building him, all that kind of stuff.
Money. I'm not going to say that it matters because it does. It depends on what type of person you are. If you've been struggling all your life, that's probably not going to be somebody for you to get with because you just don't want to be in that type of position. Whatever traumas you have going on, you're not going to want to have to deal with struggling some more in your life, in your relationship. If you come from money, there's two things. Either you're going to come down from your level to this level, or you're going to help this man build himself up. Now, a lot of people don't want to do that because from what I've heard, and sometimes from what I've seen, there are men that when you build them up and you bring them to this level, it's called a starter wife. So once they become this person, they no longer want to be with you because you saw them while they struggled. So they want this new wife who just knows them as this Superman. As for me, I don't really care about money too much because not because I haven't struggled in my life. It's just whenever I need something, it's given to me. However way it happens, And I just trust in that.
So for me, I was that girl who would choose the broke guy. Like seriously, my friend coined it community service dating. So that's what I was. I was a community service dater, and yeah, like after a while, I was like, nah, I'm not doing it no more. Like, and then I attracted someone who creates money out of nothing. Like that was actually one of my standards. I had a whole list of standards, and one of them was specifically like I need to be with someone who has an abundance mindset and who can create money, you know, like consistently. So I get it. I get the, love that person for who they are, and that's fine, but I know that the type of lifestyle I need to live, like the fact that I want to be a homeschooling mom. I'm not a mom yet. I'm soon. I'm 31. I still got time. But yeah, like that's not for me anymore. However, if someone is down at the moment, that's a different situation. Like there's certain attributes that a person who has an abundance mindset will have, even if they're not producing the money right now. You'll see that ambition. You'll see that they're not being lazy, that they're not like just sitting around all day wanting to be in your face and cuddle and whatever, and not actually do some work. And so I think those are the things to pay attention to. If you do meet someone who is down at the moment, seeing that there's no way that this person could be down for long term because of this person's work ethic, because the way that they think, speak, the choice of words that they use, you can see a broke mindset versus an abundance mindset. So
I think that would come with, sorry, Ms. Harvey. I think that would come with time, just actually getting to know somebody. And even if he's down at that point in time, if when you guys in conversation, you get to speak to him and you can figure out where he's been, where he's going, and the steps he's taking to get there, that's different. But yeah, I mean, I did have a list of things too, but I find that when you try to go by the list, it just doesn't really work out well. I don't, I'm not saying I don't look at broke dudes, but I keep it in the middle. You know what I'm saying? Like, okay, you lost your job, fine, but you had a job. You had this, you had a business. Oh, okay, it failed. Things like that happen. That's fine.
I'll say this. I literally have only gravitated to men that have money. So this is something that I've really learned. Not because I've never had financial struggles that weren't self-imposed, right? So I had a short period of my life where I just chose to like disengage my family, and I left my first marriage, and I just chose not to take, I left a beautiful home just to kind of find myself and what I could do for myself. But overall, my life has been a very comfortable life. I feel that a lot of times, I feel like there are three types of Black people, right? There are those of us who might be second, third, fourth generational wealth, right? There are some of us that struggled when we were younger, like maybe our parents were working parents, and then we got degrees, and then we're like, our children are first generational wealth, right? And then there are those of us that are still poor, right? Because that's the legacy of slavery. And I find that people who have a close attachment to struggling because of growing up with like very little, to me, there's a sort of like money, and having money becomes an idol. And what I'm here to tell you, that somebody having money does not make them a good catch. There are a lot of assholes with money. So they're excellent providers of money, of comfort, and poor providers of love and companionship, right? So I think there has to be a balance. Obviously, money is important for comfort. It's important for comfort, but it's not everything. You can be unhappy in a penthouse, right? Because I've been that person. You can be, unhappy with everything. You can be unhappy wearing designer clothes, right? That is a thing that can occur. So I think it's important for the reasons Ms. Botanica was saying, like, you know, we definitely want to have somebody that's capable of providing as women, because we want to be able to give birth, right? We want to be able to stay with our babies if we can. We want to be able to homeschool and keep, you know, our young Black minds out of this system that, you know, starts to assault them from preschool. We want to be able to do those things and play our role as women. So money has a value. But I think that sometimes we press too much value, especially considering Black women excel so much in society over Black men, right? For various reasons, right? So the assault from the men of the status quo is lower on Black women because we're not their direct competition. So we're able to get in places easier than Black men are. So we take our degrees, we're the most degreed in the Black community and things like that. And we reach a level and we're like, well, now I only want Black men like me, but there's a very small pool of those, right? And then money becomes a major factor. I understand wanting to date people of your intellectual superior, that are your intellectual superiors, that are your financial superiors, that are your moral superiors. We all deserve that. But at some point, we do also have to ask ourselves, and this is not settling, because settling would mean that money was the most important factor. I have, and my viewers know this, I have a scar on my neck where a money man shoved a knife into my neck. So then the question is money the most important factor? And I also like to point that out because I feel like if I can have a Black man attempt to take my life and I don't feel all Black men are trash, I really give little leeway to other women who would make that argument based on the fact that they had a relationship go wrong. Sometimes we let our personal experiences, you know, dictate our view of the whole community, and it stops us from building together, right? So I say we need to reprioritize what dating down or dating up, or, you know, I'm pro hypergamy, but then like, this is real life too, right? You can't just throw a check at every problem.
This is true. That's why I said, you know, like, I would talk to somebody who doesn't necessarily have money right then and there. And I agree with Botanica if he has a money mindset, like he knows how to generate it. Because I find when I was dating that a lot of men with money were just not that nice. And they spoke down to you like they're doing you a favor. And I was like, yeah, I pass on the mansion, car, the vacations, because there's no way I could ever deal with you. But wanting to be comfortable and having the nanny that you need so that you can actually go out and spend time with your honey and stuff, those things are important as well. So yes, money is important. It's not the major factor, but it is a factor.
Yeah, definitely. I don't think money is the most important. It is a factor. It is important for, you know, the reasons that we all stated already. But I think the most important factor is someone that you really can see as a partner, whatever that is for you, because we all have our own ambitions in life, right? Like some people, like, you know, like my husband and I, like, we're partners in our health and wellness initiatives. You know, like I needed someone who's going to be on that same track as me as far as like how they view health and how they view their community and how they view like who they are in the world, right? So that's what a partner is for me. But like everyone has their own, you know, path in life, and they need somebody that's gonna roll with them on that. So I think that's the most important thing.
Yeah, and so that leads me into another conversation about like people feeling that, you know, the Black community is in disrepair. And that's another reason, you guys, that I wanted, because I feel a lot of times we feel like when we talk about Black women being the mules and things like that, just to kind of digress back to that part of the conversation and the workhorses, you know, when I had Brother Amwale on here, Amwale said something that was really important. He said, if you see me, one Black man working, I'm doing the work of 10, right? So I think about Marsha's husband, right? Who we are all supporting, who does the work of 10 men, right? And around him, you see a lot of women, right? Because we're very nurturing. So we're doing a lot of teaching of the classes and things like that. We're doing a lot of the work around him. And somebody on the outside can be like, oh, these women are doing all this work, right? As if there's not a man doing the work that's present as well. And I could say the same thing for Mr. When he throws a program for Black youth or, you know, something like that, there are a lot of Black women who are surrounding him. And that kind of goes to what Botanica was saying earlier, is a lot of times we're doing a lot of the work because a lot of the work that needs to be done is on the human level. And as the nurturers, that becomes like our position. Do you know what I mean? And so a lot of times, now this is not to take away from the single mom who's literally doing the work of like the mother and the father, right? That's a real thing. And I don't want to diminish that. But I also want to say that a lot of the work we see being done as women is the work that we're actually fit to do. And so that's why we see ourselves doing it. Even I have an uncle and his wife is a stay-at-home, and he was like one of my models. Well, so many men in my family were my models for what I believe male and female relationships should look like. But this particular uncle, he ran a business and then he also worked. So if you can believe it, he ran a business, and then for the company that his company contracted with, he also would work for that company after his employees finished like their day. And he would leave Sacramento and drive into San Francisco, and he would basically work all week long in the city and then go home on the weekend to be with his family. And so somebody could look at that situation and be like, man, his wife just does all the work. She does everything, da, 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 da. But the thing is, he was carrying the burden of making sure his whole family was cared for. And he would go without sleep. You know, between jobs, he would go pick my aunt up because she didn't want to drive. She never got a license. And drive her to and from work, to and from her house, to the grocery store, all this stuff. But on the outside looking in, and even his own son was at my house one day and was like, man, I wish my dad could be around to do X, Y, and Z. Do you know what I mean? And it's like, you have no idea. Your dad is working. He's carrying a huge burden. So I think sometimes the division of what work is, and because we can't see that work, if you've ever been a stay-at-home wife or mother, you know this. Your husband gets home and you want to be like in his space. You want to talk to him. You're so happy to see another adult. You're like, ah. And he's like, back off. I need space. And you're like, what? You've been gone all day. You've been able to such and such. And I've been stuck here with the kids. And it's like, no, it's a different type of work. Just like we want our work as mothers and wives respected, we have to respect that we may not see men's work, but it doesn't mean the work's not getting done. What are your thoughts on that, the division of work, and is there truly a huge divide, or is it that there is some divide that we can't deny, and that part of it also is that we see different aspects of the work being done because of how we're positioned as women?
Yeah, I definitely think it is. It's that it's the different roles. Like men and women do carry different roles because of their nature. Like as you mentioned, we were talking like right before the live stream actually started. We are more nurturing. Like we are going to be doing most of the relationships, like the phone calls and the checking in and the, you know, organizing the people like that. We tend to do that kind of work because we're more geared towards that. And so men might be doing more of the structuring or just the laboring and things like that. Like there's just different ways that we approach or think about things. So there is going to be a divide because we're already being moms and being wives and taking care of home and taking care of our own businesses and things that we like to do. And caring for other family members outside of our immediate family. Like there's like a lot of different things that we do besides the business that we have with our mate or with the men in that we're co-working with. It could feel like we have a lot on our plates. And so when it could feel like, I don't think that we're the mules of the community. But if men are not recognizing that we're doing not only the tasks that they see us do, but the 10 things we have to do before we leave the house, plus all of the other things I mentioned, then it could feel like a little like we're slighted. So we just want to make sure that it is recognized and we are respected for all of the work that we're doing.
I feel that as women, we do a lot of work, but it's equal. If the man is out and about, running around, bringing in the bread, then yes, it's okay for us to be in the house and taking care of the children, the bills, making the phone calls. I think it gets unbalanced when you have men who want women to do all of that housework and the calls plus whatever it is they're doing. Then it's like, okay, and then they don't feel like she's doing enough. I think that is a problem because that means you don't know what it's like to be in the house with children. Let me let you have them for a month. I don't even think you would last a week. Most men wouldn't, you know? So that's when the discourse happens. I think as long as the man respects and understands that she's doing just as much as work as you're doing, things will be cool. But it becomes a problem when the man thinks that taking care of home is not a job. Taking care of children is not a job. Like they're your children, but right. That's what I think. That's where I think the issue happens. Other than that, I mean, when you understand your role as a man and I understand my role as a woman, and we keep that respect there and that appreciation there, everything works out perfectly fine.
Yeah, I agree with that too. A lot of times, especially this new generation. So in my family, I've seen it modeled a lot where men led households and women played the support for men and kept the households in order. And then what Botanica was saying, that's very true. And Marsha, you brought this up too. That's been my experience, is then you're also playing like executive assistant, right? You're like also, you were trying to take as much off of his plate for whatever business he's got going on as possible. So a lot of times we hear younger men and women speaking about traditional roles as far as male and female hierarchy and hypergamy and things, and the men view it as women just staying at home doing nothing, right? And the women view it as somebody just paying my way and I just look pretty all day. When the reality is like both parties are doing a job. So as a woman, you are making the phone calls, you are responding to those emails, you are keeping that schedule, you are making sure the bills are paid. You're anything that he's like, I mean, heck, I've even made like, flyers for events and, and like priced out stuff. So you are making they're literally like their executive assistant. And then you also do the work at home. And there can be animosity on a woman's part if you do all that work. And then you have to also go and do outside work to make things function. Or if you're just a stay-at-home, I don't want to say just a stay-at-home mom, but if you're a stay-at-home mother and wife, and it's viewed that you're just sitting around all day doing nothing. It's like, no, I do things, I do a lot of things, and other people, they get paid to do those things, right? I'm doing those things to support you versus somebody getting paid to support us, right? So I think it's like a mutual respect thing. And I think if we start looking at these things from more mature perspectives, I think a lot of times these conversations, and that's why I really wanted to have these ladies on. Women in functional relationships with healthy dynamics, I think is so important because you get young people who don't know what a functional relationship looks like, or hurt people who haven't had the benefit of a functional relationship talking on these issues. And it's like, okay, how about some of us that are actually successfully executing this? How about we say something about what this looks like and what the dynamic is and what we had to learn about ourselves to achieve a healthy place in life. And I think I would love to hear more conversations like this from Black women, where we have functional women in healthy relationships who do see Black men working, who that is their lived experience, so that we can stop being categorized as the anomaly in the Black community. We are the anomaly because we're not speaking up, because we have nothing to complain about, so we're not on YouTube and all over social media putting out crazy posts, right? Because we're too content. We forget that our resting in our contentment is allowing people who are damaged to mislead people down roads that are not going to be productive. And I really hope that, as far as like you guys listening, that you put a lot of weight on what Marsha and Botanica are saying, because they have successful relationships with men that are accomplished, love our community, and love our women, and love our children. And they do the work, they run their households, they love their wives, and these women, they are success stories in the Black community. And their voices, I think, are more relevant, right, to this discussion if what you're truly seeking is a happy life, you know, with a Black partner. Do you guys have any like just words of wisdom that you guys want to close out with, or other thoughts you want to share before we go?
Yeah, you know, thinking about what you just said, I'm you know how on TV, like they'll show the ratchet, you know, reality TV shows, and that's what people actually think is like what Black people are. It's the same thing as the YouTube world. You know, if there's only representation of poor connections between Black women and men, then that's what's going to be out there. So you're absolutely right. You know, everyone who has like a different perspective than what is prevalent in the community, please speak up. And again, Irene, thank you so much for even putting this together so that we can share our voice, because it is very important. I know tons of successful couples and people who, even if they're not in a relationship, they still have the view that like, yeah, my past relationship didn't work, but guess what? It was a learning lesson for me. And I talk to my clients about this all the time. It's a learning lesson. It's something for you to look back at, like, okay, how was I showing up? You know, what part of this was my own doing? And what am I not gonna, you know, say yes to anymore? And yeah, so I just think that we should all be looking at ourselves and what we're putting out, and continuing to tweak until we get the life that we desire. And because it's very possible. We all deserve abundance, love, peace, happiness, all that.
I think it's important for people to understand that when you find somebody that you potentially think you can spend the rest of your life with, when things go wrong or things don't go right, you can't look at them like they're your enemy. You know, I hear a lot of discourse between men and women in the Black community or the conscious community, because you're looking at the woman, or the woman is looking at the man like that's their enemy. If you look at it like that, you always have an issue. It's not just with this person, it'll be with all women, or it'll be with all men. We have to start looking at each other like we're in this together. That's not your enemy, you know. And you have to remember, like Miss Irene and Miss Botanica said, people go through trauma. You don't know what happened in this person's life, and men more than, you know, less than women will actually express that to you. So that's where the patience comes in, and that's where the vetting takes place. Take time. You take the time. Okay, so you can actually figure out if this person's trauma is something you can actually deal with. And don't look at them like they're enemies. Everybody's gone through things in their life, you know, and just by the way that they were raised, it might be completely different from yours. It doesn't mean that they're a bad person. It just means this is the way they were raised. Maybe they need guidance to show them, like, no, this is how it should be. So, yeah, we're not enemies.
Yeah, I think that is actually a really good note to close out on. In these conversations, I think what kind of hurts my heart the most is the amount of vitriol we have for each other. And that has to stop. We don't, we're all on the same team, you know, and there are some of us who, I mean, they're going to do what they're going to do. But the thing is, we let some of the angriest, most frustrated people amongst us speak. And then what they say resonates with us because we have pain. And then we go down this destructive rabbit hole with them. And I want us to pull back a little bit and recognize that we don't have to fight against each other, that what we should be trying to do is listen to the voices. Don't listen to a voice that's going to feed into your anger, right? Listen to a voice. And I think we've all sat up here and said, yeah, you know, I had a bad experience, or this happened or that happened. But then I was like, and I love the ladies kept talking about introspection, right? And working on myself. And I think if we all choose that route first, let me work on me and fix me. And then I can actually deal with the world in the most healthy way, right? Because it's easy to focus on what the next person's got going on and what they're doing wrong. It's harder to focus on what we've done wrong in a situation. And sometimes when somebody's really, really bad to us, because they're so bad, we try to absolve ourselves of all responsibility. But no, you still have responsibility even there, and seek that out, you know? And know that that person is not your enemy. I think you're right on point with that, Marcia. We're very quick to demonize each other. And I just, you know, Marcia, her husband and I, we go back and forth over a YouTuber who will go nameless, you know? And I'm always like, well, come off the ledge, just be a little more gentle with the brother, you know what I mean? And because that's my attitude, is like, even if we wanted people to heal, once we demonize each other, we don't give people room to heal in return. Do you know what I mean? People have to know that they can heal in return, and that they will be loved and accepted, because all of us are not perfect, and all of us had healing to do before we reach the places where we're in now. And I hope you guys gleaned something from these two ladies. Thank you so much for coming today, Botanica and Marcia. And also, send your kids to Ziax, donate.
Yep.
Yeah, donate to the Institute, y'all.
I need to donate to the Ziax Institute. We're a Black homeschooling initiative in Brooklyn, New York. We also have a summer program going on right now. All right, sign up.
Yeah, and our summer program is lit. We have theater, we have dance, we have music, vegan cooking. Me and my husband do that one. A&P, anatomy and physiology. Miss Marcia makes it fun.
An anatomy and physiology class. Yes, I do.
Photography, art, like our summer program is dope, and it's online. So you know, come on over. And the institute as a whole, we have teachers like Miss Irene. She makes social studies like fabulous. Like the students can't wait for Irene to come.
They love her. The parents love her. Irene, you don't know how many parents are like, I love Miss Irene. I love Miss Irene. She's so thorough.
Yeah. So thank you all for listening. Follow us on Instagram. My Instagram is I.am.botanica. I'm an energy therapist. So I deal with talk therapy, energy healing, yoga, a variety of things, herbalism. So, holla at me. And yeah.
Ziax Institute, y'all. Oh, and we're also accepting applications for September.
Yeah, so please do enroll your children next year for our September courses. I will make sure that I put in the comment section for those of you that want to donate to the Institute. I'm sure you've heard me talk about it many times before, but just know that if you choose to support the Institute, and if you choose to try to enroll your children there, that this is the energy they'll be surrounded with. We are about building with each other, loving each other, and cultivating healthy children so that we don't have to have this corrective action in adults. We'll grow them, right? We'll grow them healthy and functional from the ground up. And I think that's essential.
Let's try to do without the drama and the trauma. And we won't have so many of this dialogue. When you start with the children as children and you raise them up properly, there won't be these issues that we're dealing with. This is, old generational issues we're dealing with. Let's try to make sure that the youth don't have to go through this.
Yeah, and one more important part about Ziax is there's the fabulous nurturing women, but then there's the beautiful, strong, vulnerable men. So we have tons of those men in our institute as well.
So for any of you who are interested, I'm sure Miss Irene is going to put the link to the Ziax Institute so you can either donate or join us this summer or in September. Love to have you in your
Yeah, I'll make sure I have that both in the description box and in the description box and in the chat. And Carmel Jones, I don't think any of us are in a struggle. I think all of us are pretty comfortable. We're all pretty comfortable. So that was literally talking about how to avoid all of that, right? So with that said, yes, do support the Institute. The information will be in the description box and in the chat. Try to just think about the things that you heard here. Just try to take it in, Carmel. Try to take it in. And hopefully you guys, let's have some conversations that are productive and not divisive, that help us build, right? So that the talking about the problems is great. Learning how to fix those problems and getting on the same page is even better. So with that said, talk to you guys later.